Hello, welcome back to I Create For You. My name's Lori, and we're doing another ghost story in the Ghosts Among Us book. This one is also in like the letters that were written to the author, and actually, this author took some of those letters and added them to her book. She had gotten permission to do that, so I'm going to read another one of these uh, letters. Now, remember, these are letters to another author about an experience. A special child. I am the mother of an autistic son. I have never before talked about the experiences I have had with my son, for fear that somebody might think I am insane. I will do my best to describe what happened. The first incident occurred long before Nathan was diagnosed with autism. He was an incredibly intelligent baby, yet did not speak a word, though it appeared he was inventing his own language. He seemed to have some kind of relationship with walls. He would stare at the walls and laugh hysterically. He seemed to be watching a silent, invisible movie. One day he stood very close to the wall and whispered unintelligible words from his own language. Then he put his finger over his mouth and said, "Shh." This was very unusual because he did not interact with anybody ever for any reason. He had never made the shushing noise before. Oops, sorry about that. At first I wrote this off as autistic behavior, but then I began to wonder if Nathan was interacting with a world the rest of us couldn't see. Nathan was something of a savant, displaying extraordinary mental agility as autistic children sometimes do. He knew things he should not know. He could count, instantly add and subtract without use of words, numbers, or symbols. Though I am a math whiz, my son seemed to have some kind of magic with numbers. But he also appeared to sense things long before the rest of us. Each morning of the day we were to visit my family, Nathan vomited every time for years. The coincidence here is that my family has since disowned me. They did not approve of the fact that I refused to send Nathan away because of his autism. They could not accept what they perceived to be a flaw in him. Nathan always seemed to have some kind of ESP, and I wonder if he knew they hated him for being autistic. That is sad and ignorant. That's not in the story, that's just my opinion. One of Nathan's aides at the school witnessed an occurrence of ESP. She had put some jelly beans in her desk drawer before he arrived. She said that he walked in that morning and immediately went to the drawer and grabbed the jelly beans. She was shocked, as no one else knew why that the candy was there, and Nathan broke his normal routine to go to the drawer. Something unheard of with autistic people. One of the most incredible things occurred when we moved into our cottage 5 years ago. One morning Nathan motioned for me to come into his room. He pointed at the wall where the light switch is. I thought he wanted the light on, so I told him he could turn it on. He then took my hand and we walked to the bathroom, where he got a small piece of toilet paper and handed it to me. Then he motioned for me to go back to his room with him. He looked at the same spot on his wall and said, "Ghost is crying." He motioned for me to wipe away tears with the toilet paper. Nervous, I laughed. He repeated, "Ghost is crying." I decided to wipe away the tears, and he seemed satisfied. I was baffled, as this was completely contradictory to his behavior. He does not talk that way. He does not behave that way. He doesn't have an abstract imagination. I admit that it freaked me out. A few minutes later, I went back to his room and tried to ask him about it. As usual, there was no reaction to my words. How could he know how to console someone if he could not accept it from me? This is an author's note. The autistic mind is somewhat of a mystery. not lacking in intelligence, the special people afflicted with this malady think differently from the rest of us. Challenged to communicate with others, they often have extraordinary abilities superior to normal people. A correlation between autism and ESP, along with the ability to see ghosts, has been noted. Nathan's mother hopes that serious research will be done on this connection, and her story has been passed along to paranormal researcher Dr. Sally Ryan Feather, Director of Development at the Ryan Research Center in Durham, North Carolina. First of all, I'm sorry I interrupted the story, but the ignorance of her family just ticked me off. You should not have an attitude, especially if it's a family member. She should have had support, knowing that her son was autistic, and they should have took the time to get to know him. Whether or not they thought he had a flaw, that's not their place to judge. They should not have. That just baffles me. Oh, they're just, and that ignorance is not just in her family. It is rampant lately. Ignorance over a lot of things that people should not judge. Alrighty, so he's seeing this ghost crying in the wall, and I'm going to just do a face, and we're going to pretend this is the wall. And I'm going to do a face crying, the best that I can, and we shall see how it looks, how it turns out. But I thought that would be that's my interpretation of how to illustrate this ghost in this story. So I'm just going to make this a sad ghost because the ghost is crying. He sounds like he found a friend in this ghost, which is good. I mean, if you have that capability, and maybe the ghost realized that this child was special. And I have no idea, it didn't really say, oh, these are horrible eyebrows, but they didn't really say how old he was either when he had this communication. That's what I call it communication, because obviously he felt bad for this poor ghost. And for what saddens me is that being as sensitive or with his ESP to even know that family members I just can't get over that his own family members didn't take the time and didn't want to and wanted him sent away. How do you even come to that conclusion? Okay, I worked in a facility. I think this is why another reason I have a hard time with this. I worked in a facility. It was called the Hamburg State Center, and it was for people with physical and mental disabilities, and that's what we called it. Just disabilities. They weren't flaws. And it was sad to know that these people were left there because they're either, like maybe their family situation warranted that, but some of them didn't even get visitors. That's just, it was sad. It was really sad. I was happy I was there to interact with them and learn from them. You can learn a lot from people who have these issues, and it was just sad that sometimes you know, the here's I'm just gonna explain this one individual, and that's what they were called. They were not called the R word. I detest the R word. Um, I do not. I do not like it. I do not like that word used. And anyway, this one family member, he was kind of a big deal in town, and he had his own business and everything, and he was a funeral director, and this is just like hard because it just ticked me off. This His brother was in an accident when he was a child, and actually that's how he came to be at the institution. And that's how some of them were up there. It wasn't something they were born with. It wasn't Down syndrome. It could have been something that some of them had cerebral palsy and things of that nature. Some of them were bedridden and didn't, they couldn't really communicate, or they didn't talk, they didn't walk. Most they did was just lay in a bed until you moved them into another recliner or whatever. But okay, so this when someone would pass away, we would actually end up at this guy's funeral home. And oh gosh, we went there, and it was actually a guy passed away who was on his brother's in his brother's unit, which was the unit I worked on. And we went to the funeral home, wheeled them in so they could, be there for the service of their friend that they lived with. And his brother did not one time come over and acknowledge him. Not once. And the sad part is, he was in a wheelchair, but he had issues. Like, his body was not he had kind of because of the accident, it kind of deformed him, I guess you could say. And so he was restricted to a wheelchair. He did not he could communicate to you. Like, if you talk to him normally, he couldn't really talk that well, but if you'd ask him a question, he was able to say yes and no and look at you. But like, his eyes were different and everything. So he really did get hurt when he had this accident, when he was hit by believe he was hit by a truck. And the family decided to put him up into this institution. Yeah, he could have thrived at home. There would have been nothing wrong with it. They would have just had to bathe him. They would have had to do some things for him and feed him. But I mean, come on. He would have thrived a heck of a lot better being at home with his family and knowing that he was at least loved a little bit. It's just so sad that. And he was excited. When he found out that we were going to where his brother worked, somebody had told him, and I wish they wouldn't have, because they got his hopes up, and he was all excited to see his brother, and he was smiling when we were there. And nothing. The guy didn't come over, didn't even look at him. Like, he was embarrassed. And it was just so sad. And you could see it in his face that he was just devastated that his brother didn't even come over and talk to him. And it was so sad. I mean, like, that's just that's just wrong. Just totally wrong. That's just how I feel about it. Anyway, so yeah, I think that's why this kind of bothered me somewhat, because I worked with individuals like that. There were a lot of them up there that it was nothing uh they were born with, something that happened. There was one guy, he could talk and everything, but he had trouble. He could walk a little bit, but he had trouble walking. And I think he was the youngest one up there at the time, and he was in his 20s. And because after a certain age, they stopped um, taking them into institutions. So I think at the time it was 20 something. I don't remember, but I know he was in his 20s. Now, he is in there because he ran in between two cars when he was 2 years old. I believe he was. He ran out into the street when he was 2 years old because his mom was across the street. And he got hit. And that's what caused the reasoning why he was mentally and physically handicapped. So yeah, but he could talk. He just had some minor quirks, and some things had to be regulated with medications and whatnot. But I think he would have been okay at home. Some couldn't because of their extreme disabilities, or they may have been uh, at a point where they would be had anger issues that could have harmed family members. They wouldn't have been able to control him, but or them, I should say. But others, there was just like no reasoning why they couldn't. And you know what? The facility closed in the 2000s. I'm not sure what the date was, but they started filtering them out. So, I mean, some of those family members, I don't know what they did. I know some of them had to go into nursing homes, got transferred into nursing homes because they were completely bedridden. But I'm pretty sure nursing homes didn't just take any Tom, Dick, and Harry that the families didn't want. So I have no idea what happened to some of those individuals, but it's just a sad thing all around. I'm going to bring this up to you and let you see. This is a crying ghost through the wall. So that is my interpretation of what that ghost would have had to look like. I didn't want to make the face scary because I'm not sure that he would have been laughing and smiling and worried about the ghost if it had been looking scary, like with big black eyes and looking. So that's why I did this kind of a sketch. Well, enough of me ranting and raving and getting worked up over this story. But anywho, thank you so much for stopping by and listening to me explain my views and my opinions. Everybody has them. Whether you agree with me or not, that's just how I felt and how I still feel. So, if you like this the story today, and if it rings kind of hits close to home, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think. If you think that it was kind of wrong for the family to just say that her son had a flaw. Ugh. But anywho, thank you. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't. We have a few more going on in here. On Wednesday, I am going to do probably some of that sketchbook, the 200 drawing prompts, because I haven't been in there for a while, and I'd like to dabble in some more sketching this month. And so I might do that on Wednesday. And if you haven't seen that yet, stay tuned for that. I do have some videos, so you can check them out. They're the 200 drawing prompts, and it's in a book, and you can get it at Walmart. And if you don't want to get it at Walmart and want to use a blank one, like I always say, you can follow along. I can read off. If you follow all my videos and go back and look through, I do the last two, I think, prompts, and then the prompt that I'm doing, and then the prompts that are coming afterwards. So you can do your own type of prompt book. You can write them down as we go along and do your own thing. Thank you so much. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay creative, stay creepy, stay tuned, because we're going to have a whole lot more fun on this channel. And thank you so much for stopping by today. Bye bye for now.